Hello there, Mr. Wilson here again for another episode of How Do I Help My Child With? And in this episode, we're going to look at number lines. So the keywords for this episode are number lines, divisions, and place value. So in a very basic sense, a number line is just a line that has numbers on it. I mean, there's a little bit more to it than that. These will have been introduced to your child at primary level and would have been used heavily at primary school, but they tend to not get used as often at secondary school, which I think is a real shame. Because a lot of secondary school students think that number lines are sort of beneath their ability, when in actual fact, I think number lines can be a fantastic tool to use for any student in secondary school, even at GCSE level, because they're really helpful for ordering numbers, especially when we've got negatives in there, and also even for adding, and we'll look at an example of that in a little bit. But for me, even if you don't use them as often, I still think they should be something that students should still be using in certain cases. Maybe they need to check an answer. A number line can be absolutely fantastic for that. So for me, I would like to see maybe parents encouraging students to still use number lines, even if they don't think that they're at that ability anymore and they've moved on. It's still important to have that sort of tool to fall back on if your original method doesn't work. So, what is a number line then? Well, a number line is a line with numbers on it, but separated by divisions. We call these divisions. So, for example, if I have the number 0 on this end of the number line and then the number 10 on this end, and I split the line into two divisions. So a division is the basically it's the gap between two lines on a number line. So here we've got this is one division, this is two divisions. I basically split the number line in half because I split it straight down the middle. It's important to note that these divisions are equal sized, right? So for example, you couldn't do something like that and say it's the number 5 because you split it into two divisions. That doesn't make any sense because this mark here is clearly closer to 0 than it is to 10. So if you are going to split it into equal divisions, I mean, there could be questions where students might have to estimate what that value is, of which I might estimate it could be possibly maybe 2 because it's sort of closer to 0 than it is to 10. But anyway, we're going into a whole different kettle of fish with estimations. So when we split a number line into divisions, into equal divisions, what we can say is that the distance between, or the difference between this value and this value is 10. And because I've split it into two divisions, and the reason why we call them divisions is because if I do 10 divided by 2, that equals 5. So I must know that each of these divisions is worth 5. So to go from that value to that value, I must have added 5. And then to go from that value to that value, I must have added 5 again, which is why that this value is 5, right? Because 0 plus 5 is 5. 5 plus 5 is 10. And again, you could divide the number line into more divisions if you wanted to. So, and you don't even have to start at 0. So if I started this number line at 2, and it went up to, I don't know, 10, and it was split into, let me just get this right, 1, 2, 3, 4. See, these are not going to be equally spaced because it's very, very difficult to do it on the tablet. So here are 8 divisions between 2 and 10, right? There's 8 sort of spaces between the marks. So I would first of all work out how much is it to go from this value to this value, where it's 8, because 2 plus 8 is 10. And there are 8 divisions, so I do 8 divided by 8, and that is equal to 1. So that must mean that each of these divisions is worth 1. So every time I go up 1 mark on the number line, I increase by 1. So this number line is just going to be as simple as 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. Now, obviously, these are some quite simple examples of number lines, but the method is what matters here. So let me show you an example of maybe a sort of homework question that your child might receive. So it might be something like this. What number should go in box A on this number line? Now, some students are very quick to just sort of look at that number line and go, oh, I know what that number's going to be. But we can still employ the same method as what we've used here for this question, right? We can still, it doesn't matter what values are there, we can still employ the same method that we have done. So first of all, I first need to work out how many divisions are there on this number line. Well, the number line is being divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 equal parts, so there are 10 divisions. And to go from 4 to 5, I increase by 1. Okay, so 1, which is the increase from 4 to 5, so 1 divided by 10 is 0.1. That means that each of these divisions is worth 0.1. So if I go up to the next mark on the number line, I will increase by 0.1. So this must be 4.1, this must be 4.2, and then 4.3, 4.4, and then 4.5, 4.6. So the value of A must be 4.7. And then you could complete the number line to finish just to make sure that you haven't miscounted the number of divisions. It's a nice little check. So there's 4.8, 4.9, and then 5 on the end. So a really, really nice question there, because the answer turns out to be a decimal. But again, this might not be sort of the most complicated question in the world, but it's a really nice example of how we would use a number line and how we would say that the number line has been divided into 10 equal spaces here. There are 10 divisions, each of them worth 0.1. And that kind of method is applicable to any number lines when you want to work out a certain value on the number line. Another example of how we can use a number line is actually for adding, and actually I've seen many students use number lines for adding, and I think it's a great idea when maybe you want to double check a column addition, or you might not want to add a massive value to another massive value, or maybe like this one, you're adding decimals, you might not be as confident with that. Number lines can be a great idea, a great tool to use for this question. So here it says work out 1.9 plus 0.5 using the number line below. Again, another typical maths homework question you might see. And they've already drew out the number line that would be necessary for this. Again, you might not be given this number line, but you would expect that from the skills that we've discussed previously, students could draw themselves a number line which would be appropriate to work this question out. Now, if we want to add these two numbers, well, I would start on 1.9. And because I know, and they've told me actually in this question, but I could work out that every time you go up one space on the number line, you add 0.1. So if I want to add 0.5, well, I've got to do this 5 times. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the answer's got to be 2.4. And again, that addition took less than 5 seconds. And that's why I think sometimes number lines can be a really, really great idea for students who might not be confident with column addition, who might not be confident with adding decimals. Number lines can be absolutely fantastic for that. And as a parent, I would still be encouraging my child to have this idea in their minds, because you never know when a number line could come up in a question where students who haven't sort of experienced number lines for a while because they don't think it's sort of at their ability might be quite shocked when they get to a number line question. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully it's not been too boring to understand, and hopefully you can walk away now being an absolute expert in number lines, especially with those keywords, divisions and dividing and number lines and all the other key vocab that we looked at. So all I want to say is thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.